You guys clicked on this video because you want to make 1200 horsepower in your Cummins powered truck. And we're here to show you how to do it. We get asked on our TikTok lives all the time, how do I make 1000 horsepower? How do I make 1200 horsepower? This is my recipe for a reliable 1200 horsepower truck, including fuel and air, for you guys to copy verbatim if you want to make 1200 horsepower. I will say, this is not the exact build that we have in Side Piece, our 2000 horsepower truck. We can put a little video up here somewhere. Deb will do that. So it's a little bit different than that build, but it's very similar. And I have full faith that if you were to do this build exactly as we described in the video, that you'll have a ton of luck. It'll hold 1200 horsepower pretty much all day, every day. Even probably take a few of those nitrous glory runs y'all want to do on the dyno. So we have a whole playlist on Side Piece. So if you guys want to learn more about that truck, we have about 20 plus videos on that. We'll link that at the end for you. So if you guys are into this kind of stuff, or, if you guys are into high horsepower diesel trucks, or Jeeps, or hot rods, whatever you're into, we do all of it here. If you're specifically looking for diesel content, we have a big announcement coming the end of January. We're going to release our full plan for Side Piece 2.0. So we have big plans. This should give a little hint of what those big plans are. But we're going to go over our whole dyno competition schedule as well as unveil the full build plan for Side Piece 2.0. You guys don't want to miss that one. This video is a little bit old. It's actually from when we were doing the initial build on Side Piece, so it's about a year old. But I guarantee this is valuable content for you guys, and I encourage you guys to watch till the end. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the shop. Welcome back to Beaman Builds. I am getting going on my 6.7 Cummins build for Side Piece, which is our 1200 plus horsepower street beast project, kind of a do everything type truck. I want to go over today what I put into my 1200 horsepower build. Is this what everyone does? Maybe, maybe not, but this is what I'm going to do, and I'm confident it'll hold at least 1200 horsepower. I know myself, I will push this thing to the absolute limit. 1200 is the starting point for me. We'll see where it ends up at the end. So to start with, we're going to work our way from the bottom of the engine up. So I'm using an industrial block because it's what I had available to me as a core, which means I needed a new crank. So my crank is a Power Stroke Products crank. It is not a Cummins factory crank. They're like unobtainium. They're super hard to get a hold of. And the ones you do get a hold of, a lot of times you have to have reground. I've found that these Power Stroke Products cranks are a great piece, and they've been in multiple 2000 plus horsepower trucks, so I'm confident it'll hit my 1200 horsepower goal. Going up next, we're going to the Beans Diesel Performance Gridlock Girdle. So there's a lot of, naysayers on putting a girdle in at this level, 12 mil stud versus 14 mil stud. I wanted to stick with the 12 mil stud. To stick with the 12 mil stud, I have more confidence that I can keep the caps from walking using a girdle. So the reason I like the Beans Diesel girdle, one, it's aluminum, so it's not crazy heavy, but it's keyed. So you have dowels that'll actually get put, one second, let me show you. So you'll have dowels that are actually cut into your main caps to support these dowels, so your dowel will be keyed in on the block and they're keyed in on the gridlock girdle plate. This is awesome because it literally keeps that side play from being possible. It's locked into the side of the block, so it should help prevent that cap walk when you're really starting to lean on it. Another thing cool about the Beans Diesel girdle, and most of the girdles have this, but it has a really nice O-ring seal. Comes with hardware, and one of the other unique things about the Beans Diesel girdle is it has these little set screws. So you guys can see these holes here. So that accepts a little set screw, and it adds a little more torque right to the middle of your main cap to prevent the cap distortion that can happen when you're really starting to lean on one of these engines. So next, we're going to be using ARP for both our main studs and our head studs. We'll be using their 2000 product in the bottom end, and then we're using custom-made 625s up top. I will go over, this will be bottom end. I'll be going over the top end at the end of the video. So we have a Molly factory piston, but I did go with a QSB bowl. So unfortunately, I don't have a narrow bowl to show you, which is factory 6.7. The QSB bowls are like a late 5.9 bowl, is this wide bowl pattern. The reason I chose this is I'm really prioritizing fuel only power, and these do make a little better fuel only power. The trade-off is you don't have as much crown area, so if you want to spray it with nitrous, you have a little more risk of melting a piston. And the other piece that you have to worry about is with the QSB bowl, you get a little more idle haze. So until your turbos really light off, you might be a little more smoky if that matters to you. If you like smoke, then, you know, to each his own, you do your thing. The other reason I was going with a Moly piston is I want this to be street friendly. If I had a forged piston in this, it would handle more heat, but I couldn't drive it every day. And that's my concern, is I want to drive this every day. I want to get some mileage out of this engine. So ideally, this piston should be plenty for what I need. In a later video, I will be showing how these get coated. So right now, there's no thermal barrier on the top, but we will be doing a thermal barrier on the top and a dry film lubricant on the skirts. And I'll show you guys how to do that. For rods, we will be going with the HD Carrillos with the tool steel bolts. These are very, very good. Like, I have no issues with them. I heard, you know, like Wrangler's the best, Apex is the best, everyone's own brand is the best. All I know is the HD Carrillos have been in multiple 3,000 horsepower trucks, and that's good enough for me. The one thing you have to worry about in these rods is this bushing is known for failure. And I'll show how we're gonna help prevent that. And I had my machine shop actually put new bushings in these. These are not the factory Carrillo ones, or the ones that come from the factory from Carrillo. So one of the things we're gonna be doing to help keeping that bearing from galling is we're using Trend tool steel wrist pins. There's two things really good about these. One is they are lighter than a standard wrist pin, which is great. Two, they're significantly stronger. They're basically the equivalent of what you'd find in a top fuel dragster. So the reason these bushings a lot of times get damaged is your wrist pin will actually bow a little bit, and that'll cause this bearing to get roached. So with the tool steel wrist pins at my horsepower, we should have absolutely no issues. Moving on next, we will be throwing Total Seal piston rings. These are the gapless second ring. I've had great luck with Total Seal and gas stuff over the years. This will be my first experience putting it into a diesel application. I'm really excited to try it. I'm confident it'll do the job well. Moving on, we will be using Moly Cleveite H and HX bearings. We'll be going through the entire process of measuring this engine and how to build the engine step by step for you guys. I don't know yet if I'm going to use H or HX, but you'll see I have two boxes here. The reason why is you may have to mismatch the bearings to get the right oil clearance. We'll be going through all that as part of this build. Then we'll have kind of a mixture of Interstate McBee and factory Cummins gaskets, a all metal water pump. I'll show that when I put it on. We're using a Repop PAI, but I've had very good luck with them. Oil cooler and a Cummins factory oil pump. We will also be using a Hamilton 188-220 cam. Not crazy rowdy, but pretty stout. The reason why I like that cam is I don't want to fly cut my pistons, and with my combination, I should not have to fly cut. A fly cut basically removes some of this material in the crown. The crown is your heat soak. So anytime you're cutting into this crown, you're removing material and creating hot spots. So if I can avoid it, I will. Obviously, when you're pushing the performance barrier, you want to up your compression. That isn't an option anymore. You will have to fly cut. For this build, I'm going to try and avoid fly cutting by using the biggest cam I can fit without having to do that, which is the 188-220. And the reason you'll run that cam is I want to do 1,200 horsepower. That's my minimum goal. I'll happily push it as far as my fuel and air will let me go, but I want at least 1,200. To be able to do 1,200, I need the RPM range to be shifted up. So the main thing a camshaft does is moves your RPM band. No matter what anybody tells you, a cam's gonna add torque, a cam's gonna spool your turbo faster. Yeah, you might get some side benefits, but the main reason you put a cam in an engine is to change where you make power. Yes, there's better cam profiles. Yes, they will help you make power. But the biggest thing is it kind of shifts where you make that power and how the curve is shaped. The 188-220 is going to move my main torque up in the RPM band, which will help this stock Cummins block live. Since we mentioned the block, let's go over what this block is. So this is what was originally an industrial engine. This came out of a mining cart. All I needed it for was a good core, and it's a phenomenally good core. This is cam bushed front and rear. That's one of the cool things about the industrial blocks. There's a, does it help? Does it not help? There's, a lot of people on both sides of that fence, but I figure more bearings is better than less bearings. And I'm not paying the money to bush every single cam bore in this block. So yeah, this is a QSB style engine out of a mining cart. The only thing you really have to do these, I have a whole video on it, but the only thing you really are doing is swapping the cam, the front plate, the rear plate, and the crankshaft. But if you already have those from another engine, these are great cores and they're way cheaper than you can find the 6.7 truck engines. I know it doesn't look pretty now, but I promise you, by the time I'm done, this thing will look amazing. So I've set piston to wall on this. It's already been through my machine shop. We did have to deck it about 5 thousandths, which is very little for this type of engine. And we pulled the piston to wall out to 8 thousandths. So I want quite a bit of piston to wall to have room for thermal expansion with these pistons as they grow and shrink with heat. So when we're hammering on this thing, ideally we won't scuff a piston. Here's the top end. This is not a remanufactured head. This is a brand new head. The reason I went with this, very, very specific reason, is this casting has more nickel in it than the traditional Cummins casting. So one of the most common problems that we have had with these Cummins heads is you get cracking in this area under high horsepower applications. The extreme heat cycles are causing issues, and the nickel will allow that to perform quite a bit better. This also has an optimized coolant passage in the head, which helps, and it does have Inconel valves, so that will also keep us under control during heat cycles. This is also using Inconel valves. Inconel is the best material that we know of currently to help handle super high heat. When you're not using Inconel and you're pushing extremely high EGTs and you're pushing really high boost, what'll happen is these will what's called tulip, which means instead of being flat, they'll start to flare up on the end. And you always have a telltale sign that that's happening because you lose all the lash in your rockers. So Inconel is a must-have if you're doing any type of performance build. Really in a diesel period, you have to have Inconel valves. So the other thing, this is gonna be a hot topic, I'm sure, and we'll see if I'm right or wrong on this one, but I went with an O-ring. You can see the O-ring cut in my head instead of a fire ring, which everybody likes to run. My thought process is I have a really good deck surface on my block. The common rails use an MLS style gasket, which already seals extremely well. And the O-ring adds enough extra clamping force with my custom-made 625 head studs I'll be running that we should be able to contain the amount of boost for my application. However, I very well could be wrong, and I could be really sad about this in the future. My thought process is I want a head gasket job to be easy, and I don't like paying an extra 200 bucks for a head gasket. So we'll see if this holds or not. You guys can follow along with me and see if I made a bad choice. If I did, I'll go in and I'll get this fire ringed. It's not a big deal. You can't go the other direction because the groove cut is too big. So going around to the front here, these are the valve springs that came on this head. These are not the ones I'll be using. I'll be using a set of Hamilton 103s for my valve springs. And then I'll be using their retainers and locks as well. And then we're going to be using these big bad boy stage 5 push rods. These things are huge. Yeah, so we'll be using these Manton push rods. These are literally the best you can buy from Manton. So I don't think we'll bend a push rod. The other component we're going to be using, and I've heard mixed reviews on if these are necessary or not at this power level, but these are the billet steel industrial injection billet nitrided bridges. So the thought process is in a normal bridge, you don't have as much reinforcing material here and you don't have as strong as a material. So under high RPM with higher pressure spring rates, these can actually bow and kind of reduce the amount of lift you have. So I'm going to use these. They're relatively inexpensive to throw in. So I did get a set. All right, the last piece of our top end here is going to be thread-in freeze plugs. So right now, these are traditional press-in freeze plugs. I'll be showing you guys how to do thread-in freeze plugs on this head. Thread-in freeze plugs are cheap insurance because these do pop out. People have been known to knock them out. So we'll be threading those in so it prevents a failure in the future. Okay, last piece of the puzzle. So we went over the bottom end, how we're gonna build the bottom end to hold the power. Went over the top end to make sure we can flow enough air to make the power reliably and consistently and have the valves under control. So now the last piece of this is you gotta have the fuel in the air to be able to make the power you're trying to accomplish. So for fuel, we went to S&S. We're gonna be using a 14 mil high speed pump. Should be able to provide all the fuel we need for our goal. Then we went with 250% over injectors with body mods. So they should be able to perform a little faster with those body mods. We're going with a compound setup. So our manifold charger is this guy right here. It is a Borg SXE forged milled wheel 472. So we have a 472 with a 86 turbine and a 9.0 housing. I think the 9.0 housing is gonna work really well. If not, I do have a 1.0 housing as well that we may have to use. The real fun, we'll just call this guy the party turbo. This is another Borg Warner SXE forged mill wheel turbo. This one is a 488, 96 on the turbine, and this is a 132 housing. So the combination, this should move plenty of air, and we are using a full 5-inch. So I will have a tiny little section of 4-inch just for a drop pipe, but we will be using a 5-inch exhaust. And I may do a 5-inch hood stack. So you guys gotta let me know down in the comments. What do you think, hood stack or out the back? I can't decide. I'm really torn, so I need some guidance. This is how I'm gonna make 1200 horsepower, or at least try to. I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. Please follow along and watch the series. If you can, like and subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. We're trying to grow the channel, and every additional person on our team helps. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.